Hello everybody and welcome back to another tutorial for making music with SunVox. Now last time we've been looking at this music score that I made specifically for these tutorials, and I inputted this sheet music into SunVox. So far I've just done the theme and the first variation. And now we're going to look at the second and the third variation. And if you know your music theory and you know your music notation, you can see, if you just look at variation number 2 here, you can see something interesting happening. And that is that this note right here at the end of the first measure, and then this note right here, and basically every note at the end of each measure is being tied over to the next measure. Now what this means is that this note, for example this F right here, starts playing here and keeps playing into the next measure all the way up until this note starts. Now that's not really a problem, you just press the key and hold it until you reach this note and you press the next key. But there's a slight problem if we do that in SunVox, and I'm going to show you that right now. So if I just quickly go and enter these two measures here in SunVox. So that's the quarter notes, 1/8 rest, and now you can see here we reach the end of the first measure, and the second measure starts here at line 16. So this F plays at line 14 and just continues to play until right about here, where we see this C. And then we go on to have the E, F and E. And then for the sake of completeness, let's add the bass line here as well. So that's very simple. And there we have the first two measures, and they sound like this. Well, that's fine, you think, but there is a problem in that this note right here that now ends on the second measure, which is this E, stops at the end of the measure right here. If I would add another pattern into SunVox where I would try and add in the next measure here, so we would start off with the same note, but I can't enter that here because it shouldn't be here at the start, it should be in the previous pattern. So this is what I would end up with. Let's start off here in this pattern. So if you listen closely, you hear this E play stop just as this pattern starts, and then the next note starts. And that's not what we want. We want this note to continue playing. Let me just quickly fill in this entire pattern so we can hear what's going on maybe a little bit better. And let's just play back now these two measures. Yeah, so there it is right here. This E stops playing here just before this C starts playing, which we see right here. And that's not what we want. We want this E to continue playing into this pattern until this C starts. Well, by default, SunVox doesn't do this. Any notes that are playing at the end of the pattern just stop playing there. And you may not really hear it that much when you're using a piano sample like we are doing right now. But if you have an instrument that has a longer sustain, think like a flute or an electronic instrument like a waveform, then you would notice this. And that's a problem because that's not what you want. Now the reason SunVox does this is because patterns are completely independent of each other. Right now in this timeline, I've got them all lined up perfectly and neatly, but I can do something like this. I can take this pattern and add another pattern and put it at the bottom. So this pattern plays, stops right here, and then these two patterns play at the same time. So how would SunVox know that it needs to continue this note right here into this pattern until here and not into this pattern? Well, there is no way of knowing. You could say, well, the pattern that's closest to this one, but if I have them like this, they are both on the same distance from this other pattern. So there's no way for SunVox to know how to continue this note into the next pattern, and that is why it doesn't do it. And there's no way either for us to continue this note into the next pattern. But what we can do, we can change the length of a pattern, and that way we can make it as long as we want, and we can have a note play for as long as we want. So that's what we're going to do. Now, because I've already inputted the third and the fourth measure here, all I want to do here is change the length of this note. So if we have a look here, the note that's playing is an E and starts off at the end of the measure here, which is at the end of the pattern, as a 1/8 note. And it is tied into the next measure, and it plays again a 1/8 note. Now here in the pattern we have this E playing as a 1/8 note. So if we want to have this play another 1/8 note, or just lengthen it, it will become a quarter note. And we would need 2 extra lines to do that. So what I can do is make sure this pattern is selected, and then go up all the way here to this button with the 3 horizontal lines. Click on that, and then click on Pattern Properties. And that will bring up this window. Alternatively, I can just double click on the pattern and it will bring up the same window right here. So in here, you can change the name of the pattern, which we're not using at the moment, so I just leave it at that. You can change the number of tracks. Well, we only need 2, so 4 is enough. And maybe you've noticed that if I would now save this song and load it back into SunVox, the number of tracks is set back to 2 because we don't need more. These 2 tracks here, 2 and 3, are empty. So if I save this SunVox file, SunVox automatically removes these tracks, and that's no problem if I wanted them back. For example, I wanted to add more harmonies to this pattern. I could just go back to the pattern properties and change the value here. We'll leave it at 4, it doesn't matter right now, but what we are looking for is this, the number of lines. And I can change that simply by clicking on this plus button here. and I click 2 times, I get 2 extra lines. So just close this window. So if we have a close look here at the timeline, we can see if I select this pattern next to it and move it up, you can see it just barely overlaps this pattern here, and that overlap is just the 2 lines we've added. So let's move this back and zoom out a little bit. So now this first pattern has these 2 measures in it, and I have extended it just so this extra quarter note is still being played. However, that is true for this note, which is what I want, but if you look here, the F3 is also playing into the next measure, which starts right here at line 32. And this F3 should really stop right here when this note starts. So what I just want to do is right here end the note like that. And then that doesn't keep playing into the next measure. So now these 2 sound like this. So that's better, that's exactly what we want. This note keeps playing into the next measure and everything is fine. Now that's alright to do if you have occasionally some notes tying into the next measure and you're running out of space in your pattern. But in this specific example, pretty much every note ties into the next measure. So I would have to add 2 lines here, which is what I've just done. Then for the next pattern, it would end here, and I would have to add a quarter note. And then these 2 measures will be 1 pattern, so I would have to add another 2 lines for this 8th note. And then finally, I've got 2 measures that would just end right here because there's no notes tied over anymore. So I could do that, but this is only 8 measures, so it would only be 8 patterns. But what if you have an entire song or much more than just these 8 measures? Well, yeah, you could, of course, just extend this pattern. If I just move this one out of the way, I could extend this pattern to be exactly 8 measures long. So how do I do that? I know that 1 measure is 16 lines, and I know that 2 measures is 32 lines, which is a default pattern in SunVox. So that would mean that 4 measures is 32 times 2 is 64 lines, and 8 measures will be 128 lines. Now, if you've been paying attention, you've seen these numbers right here at the bottom. So I can just select presets for how long I want this pattern to be. I can do 16, which will be 1 measure, 32 will be 2 measures, and 4, and then finally 8 measures. So I can put this entire variation of all 8 measures into 1 pattern. So to do that, I'll just take this second pattern that I made, right click on that, copy, and then go into the original pattern, right click here and paste. And then I can get rid of this one. And now I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 measures in this 1 pattern. And I'm only at line 64, and I still have got plenty of room for 4 more measures. So I can now easily add those. I was right here, so let's go ahead. That's a quarter note that is the same one as the C4 from before, and 1/8 rest. And this measure ends here with a quarter rest and then half a rest. So that would be 3 beats rest, and that's what we see here. Now for the left hand bass line, that just simply continues like what we had before. And there we have it. Now I've got the entire second variation in one pattern, and that sounds like this. There we have it. That's how you can change the length of a pattern just as you need it. If, for example, you need it to tie notes from one measure into the next. There are many other reasons why you would want to change the length of a pattern. This is just one of them. You can make it shorter if you just want to have one small effect play, or you can make it longer if you want to put an entire musical phrase into one pattern. You can do that. Or if you are taking sheet music like this, you might want to have one pattern for each entire line of sheet music, just to make it easier for yourself, so you know where in the sheet music you are entering what notes. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's move on to variation number 3, and that's what we see right here. And there is something strange going on. Just take a look at this first measure right here and just add up the values of all these notes. So let's just start with the bass line, for example. We've got a quarter note, then we've got 2 8 notes, a quarter note, and 2 8 notes again. These 8 notes together are quarter notes, and these 2 are quarter notes. We've got 4 quarter notes, and that is right, because that's one measure. So look at the treble line. We've got half a note, which is 2 quarter notes, and then we've got 3 quarter notes, which is 2 quarter. Wait. So we've got 2 quarter notes here, and we've got 3 here, so that adds up to 5, but it should be 4. How is that possible? It's not a mistake, and the thing we're looking at here is this little bracket on top with the number 3 in it. And that indicates that these 3 notes right here are called a triplet. And basically what it does is it changes the length of these notes. It decreases them just slightly, so that these 3 quarter notes are played in the same time as you would expect 1/2 notes. You see the same happening here in this measure, except instead of quarter notes, it's using 8 notes. So if you would count all these notes, you would end up with 12 8 notes, when you would expect to have 8 8 notes in a measure. And that's because these all have this number 3 written next to them, or on top or just below them, depending on the direction. And that means that these are all triplets, and each set of 1/8 note triplets are to be played in the same time as 1 quarter note. You can see this quarter note lines up with the first triplet here, and this 8 note lines up with the first triplet there, and this one lines up with that triplet, and this 8 note lines up with that triplet, and that sort of also indicates the timing of these notes. Right, well, not too bad, you would think. Just enter these notes in SunVox as usual. Let's start with the bass line again. That's the C. Right, so that's a quarter note and 8 note, no problem there. So let's do the same for the right hand, so the treble side, and that's a half note, and then we've got triplet, which should be slightly shorter than quarter note, but the problem is that these are not of the same length. But they should be exactly the same length, and they should all exactly fit in this space. And that doesn't look like it's possible, but it is, and I'm going to show you exactly how. Now, if you remember, if you go to the main menu here into song properties, you have the speed set to ticks per line, and it's set to number 6. And I said we leave it at 6 because that is a good value, and not only that, it also means that this number of 100 beats per minute is correct. Now what this means is that SunVox is using 6 ticks for each of these lines, and I've got 8 lines selected here, but each line is 6 ticks, so 8 times 6 is 48. And 48 is actually divisible by 3, which is what we want, because we want these 3 notes to be exactly the same length, and I want them to fit in these 48 ticks. So that's simple. I just divide 48 by 3, and I end up with 16. So I know this line right here, where I've got this G4 is 6 ticks long. So this line is 6 ticks long, and then this line is 6. And I want this note to have a length of 16 ticks. So that's 6 here, that's 6 here, is 12. And I just need 4 more ticks. So what I just do is I add this F here. Well, right now it would start at the 13th tick instead of the 17th. So what I do is I just right click somewhere on this line, and then I click here on Set Effect. And that gives us this whole list of effects we can do, but we're not really interested in any of them except for this one, Delay. So click on Delay, and that adds in these 4 numbers right here, 0, 0, 1, D. So what does that mean? Well, in this whole column you add effects to your notes in SunVox. And the first 2 numbers here that are set to 0, 0 right now, they would refer to the controller, and the second 2 are an effect number. Now I'm not changing any controllers, because the controllers are all these things here. So for example, I could use it to change the panning, then I would change this to 0, 2, and that would, and then 0, 0 for these, for example. This would change the panning, well, to nothing really, because I haven't given it any value, but this would change depending of this module. But I don't want to change any controller, so I'll just leave that at 0, 0. But 1D just happens to be the number of the delay effect. And there's really no way of memorizing that. It's just the way it is. You can easily get it by right-clicking on the line and then click on Set Effect and then put in effect delay here. You can see it says 1D here as well. So you can see that any other effect you might want to add all have these different numbers attached to them, and that's just the number this effect has. So there's no way of really knowing what number corresponds to what effects. You just have to add them in either with the pattern menu and set effects, or something like this delay you might use a lot, so you might remember that it's 1D. Anyway, this specific effect is the delay, and what it does is it delays the start of this note for a number of ticks. So I can change it to 1 tick, and then it would play 1 tick later than what it would normally do. Or I can set it at 2 ticks and would play 2 ticks later than what it would normally do. So that's just exactly what we want. I want this note to play for 16 ticks. I've got 6 here, I've got 6 ticks here, so it's 12. I need 4 more ticks, so if I just start this note 4 ticks later, now this G4 is playing for 6 here plus 6 here is 12, plus 4 ticks here is 16 ticks. And that is exactly what we need. So I can do the same in figuring out where this E should start. Because this F starts 4 ticks late, I only have got 2 ticks left on this line. I've got 6 ticks to play on this line, so I've got 8. Then I've got 6 on this line, so I'm at 14. So I need 2 more ticks. So if I just add this E here, add the delay effect to it, and give it 2 ticks delay, then now I've got 2 ticks plus 6 ticks plus 6 plus another 2 ticks here is in total 16 ticks. And that should mean that this G plays for 16 ticks, this F plays for 16 ticks, and this E, well, it's got 4 ticks left on this line, it's got 6 on this line, is 10, and it's got 6 ticks on this line, is 16 ticks. So now this G, this F with a delay of 4 ticks, this E with a delay of 2 ticks, all 3 play for exactly 16 ticks. And that means they play exactly 1/3 apart. And that is exactly what this measure says it should be. So we do the same for this triplet right here. Starts off with a C, and the C is just played like that. It's fine. Then we've got the E. But the start of the E is delayed with 4 ticks. And then I end with the F. And the start of this F is also delayed by 2 ticks. So now, this first pattern with these triplets, this one here and this one here, sounds like this. So if you count along, you can hear that those 3 are actually played at the exact right distance from each other. Now we've got a pretty similar situation going on in the next pattern. Let me just start with left hand or the bass line again, because that's easier. So what we've got here is 3 half notes, and they have the right length to be exactly one whole measure. So it starts off with an E, and we can do the same thing here. I've got 3 notes, and these 3 notes need to be spread out evenly over 16 lines. So I can do the math again. 16 lines times 6 sticks is 96 sticks. And 96 is easily divisible by 3. So you end up with 32 ticks for each note to be played. So I just add these numbers up. So this line is 6 ticks, this line is 6, is 12, is 18 ticks at the end of this line, this is 24 ticks, then this is 30 ticks, and then that means that right here, with a delay of 2 ticks, then we've got 32 ticks for this E, and then this C starts here. Got 4 ticks on this line, plus 6 here is 10, plus 6 is 16, 22, and here 28. Right here, then we would have the next one with a delay of 4. So we've got 32 ticks from the start of this note to the start of this note. And then right here we should have 2 ticks, plus 6 is 8, plus 6 is 14, is 20, 26, and 32. And this is where the next note starts, which is this D here, which plays for 3 beats, so that ends right there. And then here, this is a little bit of a tricky one, but if you know the length of your notes, you can see there's an 8th note here and a quarter note, so it's pretty much the same as one of these. So we've got an 8th note here, and then basically this D are 2 8th notes as well. So we want to have 3 notes in 4 lines. Now, of course, that won't fit, but we can use the ticks again to our advantage. So these are 4 lines, but there are 24 ticks. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So this 8 rest here plays for 8 ticks. So this one, that's 6 right there, and 2 ticks here. And then these are basically 2 8th notes together. So they are 16 ticks long. We've got 4 here. Plus 6 is 10, plus 6 is 16. So that's right. So what does this sound like then? Okay, well, we're almost done then, because we've only got these 2 measures here to do. Start off with the bass line because that's simple. And then we've got these triplets coming in here again. So just to have a sneak peek here, what I did. So just like that, and then delays on these notes. The first one is delayed 4 ticks, and The second one is delayed 2 ticks. And then we have same here, like that, 4 ticks delay and then 2 ticks. And let's change the volume of the bass line as well. And then these two measures sound like this. Then we get to the last two measures, where we get into these quicker triplets. But as I showed, the idea is the same. You just delay the notes by a number of ticks, just so they match the length they should be. So I know each of these triplets are supposed to be 8 ticks long. So that would be like that. So it's quite simple. And that's it. Now we have the third variation done. And that one sounds like this. So that's how notes tied into the next measure work, and that's how triplets work. And now if you want to try this for yourself and you have downloaded this sheet music, if you haven't, of course the link is in the description, but if you already have it, you can go on to variation number 4, and if you want to try out triplets and the notes tying into the next measure yourself, I would suggest you go ahead, pause the video now, and try to input variation number 4 into SunVox. And then I will do the same right now in this video, so you can compare your results to mine. So here we go. Let's start by adding a new pattern in the timeline, just by double clicking anywhere in this area. And then have a look here at the scores. I can see that from the first into the second measure, this note is tied over. And from the second into the third measure, this note is tied. And then from there on, there are no notes tied over from the third to the fourth and from the fourth to the fifth. So what I can do, I can change the length of this pattern. Just double click on the pattern to bring it to pattern properties. Change the number of lines to 64. That will give me 4 measures to work with. And that will be this top line right here, and you can see that there are no notes tied over from here into the 5th measure. So that's just exactly what we need. Now we'll start off with the right hand, of course, again. Starts off with a C, which is a half note, then a G, which is a quarter note, and then I've got the first triplet, and that triplet fits into a quarter note as well, so I will need to add a delay to the second and the third note of the triplets. And the first note needs a delay of 2 ticks and the second needs a delay of 4 ticks. So this first A is played for 8 ticks. This B is played for 4 ticks on this line and 4 ticks on this line. So that's 8 ticks. And this A is played for 2 ticks on this line and 6 ticks on this line, which again is 8 ticks. Now that A is tied over into the next measure, so I don't do anything there for the first 2 beats. Then I get back to the C quarter notes and I have A, G and E. And again, these are triplets. And these are also tied over into the next measure. So I get to this next C right here, that's a quarter note, and then I have another triplet, and this is a bit of a weird one, although we have seen it here in variation 3, where I have the 1/8 rest and then a 1/4 note. Here it's the same but the other way around, first a quarter note and then a 1/8 note. But a quarter note is really the same as 2 8 notes, so this triplet consists of a C, and then this is a G, and really what you would have in between here is just another C, or that's the quarter note, so I don't do anything there, but I do add a delay to this G, and that will be the delay of 4 ticks, because it will be the third 8 notes of the triplet. And we've got the same thing going on here, so that's an E and an F, which will be delayed by 4 ticks. And then I get into the fourth measure, which starts off with a G for 3 beats. And I've got the C and the D in a triplet. Again, like this. And you can see this weird thing going on all the way through the bass line. So it's not that difficult. Start off with the C, then I get a G, which is the third one of the triplet. So it needs to be delayed by 4 ticks. And it's a bit difficult to see, but that G is tied over into the next beat, which would start on line 4, but because it is tied, I simply just skip doing anything and just keep playing that G. And then right here I've got the next G, which is again the third note of a triplet. And this pattern, or these notes, simply repeat again right here. So we've got the C and the G as the third triplet note. That G is tied over into the next triplet, which would start on line 12. So I don't do anything there until line 14, where I've got the G again with a delay of 4 ticks. And you can see that lines up with the triplet on the treble side. These both have a delay of 4 ticks, so they will be played at the same exact time. Now the second measure follows the same rhythm here, but the notes are different. We start off with an F, which goes to an A. Needs to be delayed. A keeps playing from here until here, where we've got another A. with a delay of 4 ticks. And then basically the same again, so that's the F, A, delayed 4 ticks. That's what we see here. That A is tied over into the next triplet, so we've got another A here with a delay of 4 ticks, and again in the second measure you see that that lines up with this note in the treble. Now into the third measure, you can see again simply following the exact same rhythm. I could type that in, but I can just see if I compare the first and the third measure here. These are exactly the same in the bass line, so what I can just do is scroll back up to the top. I click and drag to make this selection. Right click anywhere in that selection and click on copy. Then I go down here, put the cursor right where I want this to start. I right click and I click paste, and there we have it. And I can really do the same with the fourth measure as well, although the notes are different, but I can see that the rhythm is pretty much the same. It's slightly different here at the end, but it starts off the same. So right click here and click on paste, but the notes are different. So this is a D, that G is the same, that G is the same. Then I've got the D again, and G, but then we've got an F there, and this G is an E. And you can see that if I type it in like that, SunVox keeps this effect and this number of 4 ticks attached. So I can just change this note to whatever I want, and SunVox will keep the effect there. So I just keep this rhythm, which is just what I want. Now to the second part of this variation. Again, it's 4 measures, and some of these notes are tied in to the next measure. So what I just do, add in a new pattern, make it 64 lines long, and that will be enough for me to fill in all these notes. We start off with a treble line. You can see this is the same as the first measure. Of course, you could just copy that over from this pattern as well, but there are not that much notes to type in. That ties over into this measure here, which will then continue like this, which is slightly different from the second measure. And then we end with a rest of a quarter note right here. So that's not much of a challenge. And the bass line, well, it's the same rhythm as before, so I can just right click and paste. Just need to check the notes. I got a C, then a G and a G again, then a C, a G and a G again. So that's fine, and then I can go on to the next measure, which starts off with an F, then an A again, F, A and A. Next measure, just paste that in again. Starts off with a D, G is right, G is right, D and G is right. And then for the last measure of this variation, starts off on a C, then a G, and it ends with a quarter note C, so I don't need these two. I just click and drag to select these two, and then I press Shift Delete to get rid of both those notes like that, and then I can just place the rest here. And then that is variation number 4 done. So what does that sound like? Well, it should sound a little bit like this. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed. If you did, do like, subscribe and share the video with your friends. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time.